How did ancient China punish women who committed crimes or violated social norms? Here are some examples of the 5 ancient Chinese punishments that were used to inflict pain and humiliation on the offenders. Ancient China was a highly hierarchical and patriarchal society where women were expected to obey their fathers, husbands, and sons. Women had limited rights and freedoms, and they were often subjected to harsh treatment and discrimination. Women who dared to challenge the authority of men or who violated the moral codes of conduct could face severe consequences. One of the sources of law and order in ancient China was the 5 punishments or wuxing. These were a set of penalties that were applied to different classes of people according to their crimes. The 5 punishments were designed to cause physical and psychological suffering as well as to mark the offenders as social outcasts. The first set of these 5 punishments was tattooing. This was the lightest punishment, where the offender's face or other visible parts of the body were marked with indelible ink. The tattoos usually indicated the nature of the crime or the place of exile. For example, a woman who committed adultery might have the word adulteress tattooed on her forehead. The second one was cutting of the nose. This was a more severe punishment, where the offender's nose was sliced off with a knife or a blade. This punishment not only caused bleeding and infection, but also disfigured the offender's appearance and reduced their social status. The third one was cutting of the foot. This was an even more brutal punishment, where the offender's foot was amputated with an axe or a saw. This punishment crippled the offender's mobility and made them dependent on others for survival. The choice of the foot to be cut off depended on the severity of the crime, such as the right foot for serious offenses and the left foot for lighter ones. Castration was the 4th punishment, where the offender's reproductive organs were removed. For male offenders, this meant cutting off their penis and testicles. For women offenders, this might have involved smashing their abdomen with a stick to damage their wombs. This punishment not only caused intense pain and bleeding, but also deprived the offenders of their ability to have children and continue their family line. Death was the ultimate punishment, where the offender's life was taken away by various methods. Some of these methods included beheading, hanging, strangling, drowning, burning, boiling, or grilling alive. This punishment not only ended the offender's existence, but also dishonored their ancestors and descendants. These punishments were not applied uniformly or fairly in ancient China. Often, they depended on the whims of the rulers, the influence of the accusers, or other factors such as gender, class, or ethnicity. Women were especially vulnerable to these punishments as they had less power and protection than men. Here are some examples of these punishments in ancient China. In 1999, Chinese archaeologists unearthed a human skeleton with the right foot missing in Shaanxi province. The skeleton belonged to a woman who lived around 3,000 years ago in the Zhou dynasty. She had been a victim of yue, or cutting of the foot, for committing a serious crime such as cheating or stealing. The skeleton also revealed some clues about her identity and lifestyle. She was about 30 years old when she died, and she had a relatively good diet and health. She was buried in a simple wooden coffin with some pottery vessels and bronze objects. In 145 BC, Sima Qian, one of the famous historians in ancient China, was accused of defending a general who had surrendered to the enemy. He was sentenced to gong or castration by Emperor Wu of Han. However, he chose to pay a large fine instead and continued his work on writing his monumental history book. In 2021 BC, after Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, unified China under his rule, he ordered a mass burning of books and the burying of scholars who opposed his policies. Many women who were scholars, writers, or poets were among those who were executed by fire or buried alive. Qin Shi Huang's campaign of censorship and persecution was one of the darkest episodes in Chinese history, which caused great loss of cultural heritage and human lives. These were just some of the examples of how ancient China punished women with these 5 penalties. There are many more stories and cases that illustrate the cruelty and injustice that women faced in ancient China. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget to leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought about this topic. See you next time, and bye for now.